Welcome back to part 2 of how I got lucky color grading my first feature film. In part 1, I covered the 3 reasons how I got lucky color grading my first feature film, and then we took a look at one of the shots from the film and how I graded it back in 2019. So today, we're going to take that same shot and we're going to grade it today based on the techniques, the processes, and the knowledge that I have today. So come along for the ride. But before we get started, remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification if you haven't already. We're a small channel and every like and subscribe helps. Thank you, and let's get started. Now, how would I grade this today? Let's delete all of that. Let me just use my node tree just to make my life easier. And I'm just going to add my display transform to the end. This isn't one-to-one how I would set up my project, because I would group this scene and I would also have my display transform on at the timeline level, but for the purposes of this, I'll do it right here because it'll just keep it quicker. So now what we need to do is, because we shot on red, which is log 3G10, and my color space is DaVinci Wide Gamut, I need to take my red log footage and take it into DaVinci Wide Gamut. So I have a node that presets that does that. It's just a quick preset for me. So this is a color space transform. It's a free effect in DaVinci Resolve, and I take my red wide gamut log 3G10 and convert it to DaVinci Wide Gamut DaVinci Intermediate. Right. I would then do my output. Okay, so this is typically my timeline node tree, but I'll just take it from here. So here we have the first part of my display transform, which is something that I created in the Fusion page in Resolve. And it's a really, I guess, it's a Kodak variation, but it has a lot of just color science related things going on. And then for my 709 conversion, I'm using OpenDRT, which is a display transform that you Google it, you could download it. But it's just a Rec 709 display transform. So my display transform, this right here, was made for OpenDRT and my DaVinci Wide Gamut working color space. So all of these pair together. So now that I have my 709 conversion done, now you can see we have that orange or very yellow looking image again, like what we had when we had the ACES image. Oh, and we have a before. So this is what ACES did as ACES 709 transform, and this is my 709 transform. It has heavier contrast because I also shoot with this, but it's designed to get me closer to what my final image is going to be, whereas ACES is really just designed to be a starting point, and you can take it from there. So it's not the best transform in the world. ACES wouldn't be the best transform in the world. That's why I don't use it anymore, but it is a great starting point, and it goes into how I got lucky color grading this film. All right, so we have our 709 transform. So now let's go into how I would grade this image today. First things first, this image is very yellow orangey. All right, we look at the scopes. We got some problems here. Shadows are very lifted. We're almost at our clipping point. That's really the lamp, but even the skin tones, we're just very bright and overexposed, and we're very yellow. Now, if this footage was given to me by a professional cinematographer, I would look at this image and assume that he or she wanted it this warm, right? And so I wouldn't just go into this node that says balance and try to make the whites look white, because that would be going against the artistic intent. However, I was the cinematographer for this image, and that was 7 years ago. And I know for a fact that this was not how I wanted the image to look. I just didn't white balance the camera properly, and I just shot with a very, I mean, it's 5600, but I don't know why this is so warm. Yeah, and I'm also overexposed, right? So typically I will grade really broad. So firstly, it's what's the look of the film overall, and then we go what's the look of this particular scene, and then we go what's the look of this particular shot. So we always want to leave like fine details, things like that for last, because you may not have enough time to ever get to those. So you want to always go broad first, like get it in a good ballpark, and then as you have time, then you introduce more complex things. However, in this case, because this image is very overexposed, I am going to tackle this from the shot perspective first, because it's too bright and it needs to balance. If this shot had a good balance already, then I would have tackled from the scene level and then go into the shot level grading. So first thing we're going to do is going to bring down our brightness. Okay, we want to keep our, go to our primary wheels so we can see what we're doing. I don't want my subject to go too down. So that's about almost a stop difference when we go before and after. Now that we have a better exposure level, I'll adjust my balance. Okay, I'll park that right there. I think that's a very good spot to be in. If we go before, after, I think we made a really big difference so far already. Okay, so now that we have this shot in a good place, I'm now going to go back to my scene node, and I'll approach this now. If this is what I got straight out of camera and I looked at it like this, what would I want this scene to look like? And you know, there are many things that goes into that. Where does the scene fit in the film? What's happening? What's the emotion in the scene? In this particular scene, this is at the very beginning of the film. This is our first introduction to the mom, this mom character, and it's supposed to be like a sort of rundown apartment kind of vibe. And so that alone tells me that I wanted to be a little bit more darker, wanted to be a little bit more gritty, and also in the scene itself, she's rowing her son, right? He just got locked up. She just came home from getting him out of jail. So I wanted to have a more dark, grungy kind of feel, right? So let's see how we can do that in our scene. So the first thing I might do is let's try to reduce some highlights, right? And now let's lift our gain, our gamma back up. And now let's drop our lift a little bit. And then we will now maybe raise the highlights back just a little. Let's raise our gamma. Bring those highlights back down. Let's go for before, after, before, after. Okay, that's a good spot. Now we'll do some color. So we want to look dark. We want it to be grungy. You know, what colors does that land, right? Obviously, our lamp is warm, so maybe we want everything else to be more colder, right? So that we could create some color contrast and see, you know, and really try to fit what's going on in the scene. So let's try. We're going to take our gain and let's make that a bit bluer. Blue there, kind of a little bit more warm in our lamp back, and then we're gonna go again there. And just could give a bit of life in there. Okay, so this is before, this is after. I think we have a nice color separation now. We have a little bit more of a grittier world. It's a less warm and happier per se. I think it's more fitting in of the scene. So once we've done that, just taking a look to see what it looks like as they walk through the space, and we come back to that final frame. So once we've done that, I'm thinking of what else that I would do, right, to this image. If I were grading this whole scene right now, I would move on to the next shot, right, and continue on the scene. However, since I'm only going to grade this shot, what else would I do to this shot? So first things first, I think I would introduce a vignette. I still like vignettes. I'm going to do that outside, and then I'm going to bring down the offset. And this is just going to help me to bring more focus to my actress, so that you can see her better. And I'm going to convert this to a Bezier so that I can control my in and outs better. I can make this a lot more softer. One of the things about vignettes is you don't ever really want them to be seen. If it can be seen, you might have gone a bit too far. So we're always trying to ensure that it's not, just to make it a bit bigger for you. We always try to ensure that it's not visible in the shot, right? That you believe as an audience that this is what was shot. That's very important. So I think we have a really good look right now. Now that I've introduced my vignette, I'm going to go back to my exposure tab. I'm just going to bring that up now, a little bit more now, just so I can see my subject a little bit better. And then I might now come back into the vignette and bring that down just a little bit more and soften that just a little bit more. Right? I think that puts us in a nice spot. We have a nice healthy level of contrast. And boom. And that's a really nice feel. Another thing I would do if I were to get more into the weeds in this shot, which is I don't really like the lamp is too bright. And, we probably just had a regular bulb in that. And it's just too bright. It's going everywhere. It's making all of this super bright. It's making the door super bright. I don't really want all of that. So I'm going to do a qualifier. But I'm not going to do a qualifier to try to pick a color. I'm only going to target the highest luminance values. This is the safest way to pull a key because you will never really... You can break the image if you go too far, but you will never introduce any noise or moving pixels in the image because you're only pulling the luminance channel, right? So we're just targeting the brightest values. We don't really want to get our talent's face too much. And then to bring this down, I'm going to use the HDR wheels global tab. And just bring down exposure. That's because the HDR wheel is color space aware, and this global exposure is a linear exposure, which is, to me, is just a nicer way to reduce brightness and add brightness compared to the offset wheel inside the primary wheels. So bring down that background a little bit more, and now let's just make sure our key, because we brought it down, we need to finesse our key a little bit so that no one can see the handiwork. No one can see that the colorist manipulated this super heavily. So we always want to make sure that what we're doing in the grade, no one will look at the image and say, oh yeah, a colorist did this. We want them to look and say, wow, that was shot really well. Just gonna finish finesse this. I'm gonna do that by just softening the key just a little bit more. Alright, just softening it. Don't want it to get too much on my face there. Let's soften it a little bit more. Now let's look at before and after. Before, after, before, after, before, after. So it got a little bit of my face. I'm just gonna combat that just a little bit. I don't want to get my face too much. Before, after, before, after. Nice. Now that lamp and that light, it's not doing so much in the background. I am now, though, going to just raise the brightness again because I'm looking at my subject face and I just want to make sure that we can clearly see her well, right? And then I'm going to go back to the vignette. I'm going to bring that down just a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to also tighten, adjust my inside a bit so that because I'm really soft, this is going to help, but it's not going to make it so dramatic to where I need to track this vignette. I won't have to track this vignette. And you won't be able to, and when the shot's moving, you won't actually be able to see that moving in the shot. Okay. Boom. Okay. So, I would look at this image. Do I want it to have a little bit more punch? I think that's a reasonable question. Do I want that? And the answer might be, or the producer may come in and say, yeah, I like it, but make it a little bit more punchy. So let's go into our producer node and just add some contrast. And then we're going to make it a bit brighter. Before, after. Producer might ask for a little bit of contrast, so that's what we did that for the producer. Someone might come in, hey, does it feel too green to you? I'm like, I don't know, does it feel too green to you? And typically if they're asking you if it feels that way, they sort of want you to adjust it. Let's see what it looks like if we adjusted it just a bit, just slightly. Let's take a little bit of the green out. Okay. So a little bit. Too much. Okay, I see it. That's before, after. I don't know. Which one do you like more? Before. Let's play that still that we just took. After, before, after. I like it with the green a little bit more, I would nudge it maybe ever so slightly. Yeah, somewhere like there. As opposed to what we did there. I would do this. I like this. There's a nice feel. It feels like what we want the scene to look like. I would just add a little more brightness in there to my character's face. And, if I wanted to introduce a little bit more of warmth in there, I'd come right here to my director DP node and just say, yeah, let's take a little bit of the green out, a little bit in the highlights, and go right there. And I would park it right there. So let's take a look at our before and after. All right, this is what we did before originally, and this is what we did today. Originally and today. So you can tell me what you like the most. I look at this and I can see, this lamp is blown out, as we can come right here to our scopes and see that is clipping. I can see that there's muddiness in her face, and also I can see where I use the mid-tone detail, that it's adding this fakish vibe to it that I don't necessarily like, right? But that's only in comparison to the new grade, because obviously if I just was looking at this image standalone, I would say, oh, I still like how that looks. I said this is still one of my favorite shots. But looking at the new grade, I like, what the skin is doing more, like how our skin feels more, even though the environment is a little bit more grungy, greener. I think our skin is still shining a little bit. And so this is where I would park the grade until I came back for another pass of grading. But this is where I would park that grade. And so you can let me know in the comments which one you prefer, the original grade or the new grade. So sometimes it truly is better to be lucky than good. Or from a Christian perspective, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Because I had no idea what I was doing. But even 7 years later now, I can look back at that work and be like, oh, I still like how this came out. I'm Leonardo with New Hill. See you guys in the next video. Peace.